It's January 7th, 2021. I hope you had a wonderful holiday, and we're finally going to make this working research notebook functional. Here's where we left off. Jumped ahead again a little bit. I did some stitching so that I would have some fiber here to put my folios in. And I just wanted, since this is a modified Midori style binding, I will link a video in show notes to how you exactly do this, because I'm not going to do it on camera. This is only the first time I've ever done it, and I don't feel qualified to actually teach it. Now, what I used is what's called artificial sinew, and every leather maker will know exactly what you're talking about. What it is basically is a fiber that looks like sinew from an animal, and it's heavily waxed, which makes it very easy because it's flat. It's very easy to get through a large eye needle, like a glove needle or a sail needle or what have you, or a darning needle. I'm able to trim these down a little bit. The first one goes in, and you always start from the back. So this is the back, or the last signature. You start from this one and you thread them in like this, and then you'll notice I've taken advantage of the score lines and I've made a box joint, and I have marked 3 places where if I decide to use thread to bind my signature that I can show you. Yes, I do. So on the inside, I would mark all my signatures. I would have all my pages stacked up with a center fold, and I would, so that they would bind this way. I can sew these signatures together right onto the cover, or I can make use of the center Midori style. I don't think that's a good idea for this application, because there may in fact be more pages than this sinew will accommodate, but it can be done with a little planning. So the next step is to take out my signatures, fold them flat, and choose a covering for each of these signature folders, keeping in mind I only have 4 and I'm doing it by family group. If you don't have any background paper pads, if you're not a scrapbooker or don't do that kind of artwork, here's a pretty good cheat. I knew that the paste up that I was going to do to cover these signature folios wasn't going to completely cover them. So I picked up my pack of Sharpie markers and I did borders in black for this application that, as you can see, when I pasted on the front and back covers, the black acted as the frame. Now let's zoom ahead. Our folios for our signatures are almost done. And so here's the one we just looked at. I added washi tape, which I glued down. Remember that washi tape does not stick well. I put a quick reference list of a couple of generations, just so I would have, as soon as I opened this folio, I would have birth date, death date, and where they lived. I also put family groups, because this is all family group pages. So I put a little tab that says family groups, a little piece of washi tape, and there's the back cover. This is actually a photocopy of a handwritten document by one of my great aunts, one of my grandfathers, my mother's father's sisters did for me. And so I like to have that as a reference, and I used it as a cover. The next one is for that family. And so for this one, I used just regular plastic electrical tape for the binding. I don't care that it's got these wrinkles, because the wrinkles actually accommodate the fold in the binding. Again, I used my Sharpie marker and just went around. You can see up here where it was starting to fail on me. And I'll show you a technique to try and make your Sharpie last longer in a second. And for this one, I used 2 different papers. This one is actually a full sheet of this white writing with just the fancy writing in the background. And I cut it in half, box join again. I cut it in half and I matched it with a sheet of fancy writing from the 1800s, a tab for the family, and for this tab, I took a piece of scrap folder, sorry, and I just took my pigment ink and just scrubbed a little bit to color it, and then punch this out. I have a single tab punch. I don't have the fold over kind. So there's that, and then I just went around the edge again. I matched it up so that it falls just below the family group for this family. And what's going to go in here most likely is census sheets for this family. And you can see that I've left the sheets in, but I've pulled out the folios to show you. And this is what our family, for the first folio, this is the signature, what it looks like. So when it was written, this logo I'm going to get rid of, and I'm going to put a number 1 here. No, I'm going to put a number 2 here, because this would be number 2 on my 6th generation chart, numbers 2 and 3. And then their parents would be, I think 5 and 6, but we'll see. Anyway, flipping through, these are the most recent for my dad's side of the family. The most recent I have is 1920, and they only fold out correctly in the center with the information. But it's okay, because I can look here, I've put green lines, and I can flip this over. It's not ideal, but it works, and this is not a pretty presentation book. This is a working book. So this is the next folio. Then this, with the map cover, you can see again where my marker was running out. I actually did a double line of the electrical tape, and then this back part is not pretty and it's not lined up because it's a fold out. This is actually the last folio. This is a fold out in Duluth, Minnesota, of where I think my grandfather's house was and his 2 sisters. And it's a Dutch colonial, which would not have been typical, not Dutch colonial, Dutch barn style. And it would not have been typical for that time in Duluth. So here's a picture of the house. Here's where I think this is this house. Looks a little different, but it's the same house, I think, based on the way these streets, this is actually a private drive that goes down a little bit farther. These main streets, the way they curve, the shadow right in here of the light post, which is right here. So I think this little house that was my grandfather's was somewhere in here where there's no sidewalk, no driveway now. There never, well, I can't remember if there was a driveway or not. I think there might have been a driveway, or this might have given access. Anyway, this is a reference document. It's not my pretty presentation book. So that's why that's there, and then I chose, you know, a traveling theme for this kind of information. Now, so this is the very last folio. The one that goes in between here and here is underneath this pile. This is my research notes. It's not finished yet, but it's my research notes folio, and it might move to the front, or it might, I kind of want the one that's in the front now where it is, but it also might move to the back. Now you can really see I've already edged it with black Sharpie. That's why you have a very black line here. And this is a cutout. This top part, because my Sharpie was starting to run dry, I used a cheap, and by cheap I don't mean poor quality, I just mean one that I got on sale. I used a small ink pad, and I just went in a bar all the way around, and it doesn't cover and penetrate well, so at least I had this covered so that when I pasted this and this down, I would already have an underlay here, and then I can go back and fill it in with a Sharpie. I don't know what I'm going to do for this extra, because this is my box joint. I don't know what I'm going to do for this, and I don't know what I'm going to do for the box joint either. But then the inside is just plain white, because I have those cutoffs that I said don't get rid of the cutoffs. Remember, I can stack these cutoffs here and have a flip waterfall, or I can do something else. So I don't care that this is white. I don't care that the glue didn't adhere and I have bubbles. It doesn't matter. This is my working notebook, not my pretty presentation book. So let's put this all together. Now it's all together. I don't know whether I'm going to decorate this cover or not. It doesn't matter right now. This is a working notebook. Remember, the inside cover has the 2 funeral memorial brochures from my grandfather and one of his brothers, and the obituaries are in the spine, but I can always reproduce them. Then this is the family group sheets, like we just said. We've got my mother's family. Wanted to point out that I used a green pigment ink that's almost dry. Also, don't throw those away. They're great for shading. I don't care that this is not like photo brown or walnut brown or whatever distressed ink. I kind of like this green, and I don't care that where the glue spots, some of the glue spots hit, that there's not even coverage the way you would normally see it. I like the way it's sort of spotty and not really perfect. I did edge the whole thing, as you can see, and then I already told you how I made the tag. Then here's the research notes folio. It's not, as you saw, it's not finished, but it's in there, and I'll just probably put lined paper in here for writing, or maybe source pages, I don't know. And then here's the last one. This is the travel, and this is the map from Duluth. This will probably just be documentation, or maybe areas where people lived, like a map and a picture or something like that, if I can get that stuff. So there we go. I will be adding tags, and you can see I have about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Let's find out. I have a book that will accommodate easily 1.5 inches worth of paper. Now I could add another book board here and create a spine so that I would have yet another fold in, or I could create a bigger spine so that the whole thing would fold in, and so I would have a round spine here and a flap here. I kind of don't want to do that. Or I could add a flip up. Even though I will be covering the obituary information even more, I could add a flip up. I could add just about anything I want to add. So there it is. That is our working notebook. And when we go out on the web in, February, at some point I'll show you how to find census information. I'll show you how to print out one of these family lists, and Is there anything else? Well, you know, you guys probably already know how to use Google Maps and how to do a print of a photograph just for a pay stub. So there we are, our working notebook.
That's all I have for you today. The working notebook is finished, and we're going to probably only do family research and genealogy once a month, and I will let you know later on in January when that will be. I'd like to shout out to the new subscriber in December. Thank you so much for joining us. Our next show, next Thursday, will be a completely different project. Until then, God bless you. See you soon.